Chosen by a millionaire CEO, this popcorn girl's shocking move among 83 finalists will haunt you. The crowd was electric, buzzing with anticipation. Everyone watched as the golden-haired girl stood at the center of the stage, gobsmacked and shaking in her shoes. She was just a regular kid, yet here she was among 83 finalists, all vying for a chance against those with established glories and riches. It felt almost unreal. Her heart raced, pounding like a drum as she clutched a tiny cardboard box. Inside it, an indie popcorn recipe that she believed had the power to change everything. $1 million deal hinged on this moment, and the stakes were terrifyingly high. The audience held their breath, their eyes wide. A chilling wind swept through the auditorium, whispering secrets and shadowy possibilities. Just as she prepared to speak, an unexplained flicker made the lights dim and then blare back to life, causing gasps to ripple through the room. What was happening? Was someone messing with the power? Dark murmurs spread through the crowd, filled with uncertainty. It wasn't just the lights. There was something off, an invisible tension floating like fog between the oxygen and the applause. The girl's fingers trembled as an old lady in the back row coughed a sound that echoed like a death knell. The woman's silver hair glinted under the harsh lights, and her gaze was sharp, intense. But the girl's focus was elsewhere. She suddenly felt a wave of something sweeping through her mind, pulling her deeper into thoughts she had tried to suppress. How did she get here? Was she really good enough? Then, as if the universe aligned, the CEO, an imposing figure draped in luxury attire, waved his hand. The smile on his face was gleaming, but his eyes hinted at something darker, a hidden agenda. What lay beyond the allure of $1 million deal? Was there more to this contest than met the eye? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. A sudden silence fell over the room, thick as molasses. All eyes were glued on her. The weight of their expectations pressed down on her chest like a lead weight. She could barely breathe. At that moment, the question loomed large: would she take the leap into this bizarre, glamorous world? Or was this enchanting allure a facade covering something more sinister? The popcorn girl's heart raced, and she knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning. What awaited her beyond this stage was a haunting enigma that would change the course of her life forever. The silence shattered abruptly. A piercing scream cut through the tension, echoing off the auditorium walls. The crowd jolted in their seats, heads snapping in the direction of the sound. Was it a prank? A setup? Moments stretched into eternity as whispers of confusion rippled through the audience, her stomach twisted into knots. The girl stood frozen on stage, heart racing. Silence, then chaos. The old lady with silver hair stiffened in her seat, eyes wide with horror. What's happening? She thought, battling panic. Could this competition spiral down a dark path? From the back, two security guards sprinted forward, their faces grim as they maneuvered through chairs, ignoring the stunned faces of those watching. The lights flickered again, a disorienting disco strobe that heightened the atmosphere of dread. She could hardly stand it. The weight of the moment hung heavily on her shoulders. Then she saw him. The CEO, once pristine and imposing, shifted his focus, the glimmering smile fading to an emotionless mask. His hands were clenched at his sides, a storm brewing in his eyes. She could sense the change. The audience's gasps filled the air like smoke. If they were holding their breath before, now they were gasping for air. "Stay calm," he bellowed, his voice ringing out like a silver bell, although the tremor betrayed him. "We will sort this." Everyone stay in your seats. But would they? Rustles of apprehension filled the auditorium, movement like waves against the banks of fear. In that moment, suddenly, the girl felt an electric pull. Something flickered in her mind that felt almost instinctive. What if she took a leap? What if she spoke up? It couldn't just be a simple contest, not now. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, surprising even herself. Every eye turned to her. I believe that this competition is more than just about popcorn, and I'm not scared to uncover what lies beneath it. Gasps came in unison. Some people leaned forward, hanging on her words, while others leaned back, wary. Listen. She urged, the desperation in her voice launching into the ether. What if this isn't just about a business deal? What if we are being used? As her words died in her throat as something glinted from the rear exit. A figure cloaked in shadows slipped further into view, caught midway between the light and the dark. The room stopped. Every person weighed down by an unseen gravity, as though the very air thickened. The CEO noticed too, eyes narrowing as he took a step back, creating distance. The audience instinctively recoiled, whispers of fear creeping into the space. What is that? Someone breathed out, their voice trembling. The cloaked figure shifted, a hand reached up, an object glimmered. In that moment, the auditorium was alive with dread, the reality of the competition twisting into a terrifying mystery. The popcorn girl's heartbeat hammered in her ears. What was this person after? A revelation was pending, but would the truth break her? She could feel them watching her, their hopes and their fears sparking something deep within her. Would the popcorn girl become the key to unlock this whole game? The figure in the shadows raised its head, revealing only the glint of a hidden smile, and then, everything fell dark. The lights snuffed out like a blown candle, and the audience erupted into screams. Where would this lead? What shadows lurked behind this contest's shiny surface? The popcorn girl stood alone in the dark, her instincts screaming for her to run, but something deeper urged her to stay. What awaited her in this abyss? Panic spread like wildfire through the auditorium, screams ricocheting off the walls, spilling into every corner. The popcorn girl tried to steady her breathing, but her heart raced furious beats against her ribcage as darkness enveloped her. Shadows danced just beyond her reach, arms outstretched like grasping hands. Suddenly, a dim light flickered back to life, revealing a hastily formed chaos. Audience members stumbled over chairs, desperate for an escape. Those on the stage, including the girl, were left dazed, tethered to their spots, dread creeping close. Is everyone okay? A voice rang out, desperate yet calming. It was one of the guards, making his way through the panic. She caught a glimpse of his face, sharp with focus, but there was something else. A shiver ran down her spine. The figure in the shadows had vanished just as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind an unsettling void. Stay put. Please. The guard's command struggled to be heard over the rising storm of fear. He turned back to the stage, scanning for the girl. You. Up there. Her veins ran cold. Had he heard her words? Were they listening to her? Then, out of the rumbling silence, she spotted him. The CEO was pacing at the edge of the stage, his expression transformed from calm authority to something darker, more malevolent. This is exactly what they want, he muttered under his breath, eyes darting nervously. This was all a setup. A gust of disbelief rolled through her. What did he mean? Who were they? She had to know. Her gut twisted, begging her to act, to take control. Lifting her chin, she shouted above the chaos, "It's not just a game. We're caught in something bigger." The crowd hushed momentarily, as if drawn into her words, the chaos pausing like a held breath. She saw hope flicker in the faces, mingling with fear. We can't let them win. She pressed, knowing each second felt heavier, charged with possibility, but before she could continue, the lights cut out again, plunging them into blackness so thick it felt suffocating. A cold shiver surged through her. Every knee on stage buckled, her own included. Then came the sound, a low, throaty chuckle echoing in the dark. "Do you really think they'd let you fight back?" It was the voice of the cloaked figure, slithering through the air like smoke. "Show yourself." The CEO's voice cracked, fury mingling with fear. He fumbled for the emergency lights, his authority crumbling. Again, dread settled. The popcorn girl strained to see, to feel the space around her. Though blindfolded by darkness, she knew they were not alone. Senses heightened, every sound became a warning. And then, a single spotlight ignited. It illuminated the cloaked figure, revealing its full stature. The shroud fell slightly, casting off a dark veil, unveiling a familiar face, a face known to her. Gasps flowed through the audience like a tidal wave. This was no random shadow, it was someone from her past. Surprised? The figure taunted, voice sweet yet venomous. "You should have been. Welcome to the real competition, darling." The popcorn girl felt her heart leap into her throat. This wasn't just about popcorn anymore, it was about survival. As adrenaline surged through her, something primal awoke. "No! I refuse to be a pawn." She shouted back, defiance igniting a fire in her soul, but could she turn the tables? Would the connections she once thought were lost guide her now? The lights flickered again. The cloaked figure smirked, pulling something from within the folds of its garment. A blade? A remote? It was impossible to tell in the swirling drama. Would they escape this nightmare? What was the true cost of winning this twisted game? She held her breath, trapped between the unknown and her quest for truth. It was only the beginning of the descent into madness. The figure's smirk widened, its identity looming like a shadowy specter. The popcorn girl's heart thudded painfully against her chest. Memories washed over her, days entwined in laughter and dreams, now twisted into this nightmarish reality. She clenched her fists, feeling the heat of determination rising within her. "Enough games!" She shouted, louder this time, her voice cutting through the fog of fear. She stepped forward, the light washing over her like a shield. "You think I'd play your twisted game? I won't fall for your tricks." The audience held its collective breath. Then, as if daring them to react, the cloaked figure let out a chilling laugh. "Play? Oh, dear girl, you're already deep in the game." As the masked figure's voice echoed, the stage lights flickered and pulsed, creating a visual tempest. In that blink of an eye, the popcorn girl saw faces distorted by fear, faces of her friends, of her envious competitors, all caught in their own hell. "Look around!" The cloaked figure shouted, raising a glimmering object high. It sparkled ominously, dousing the crowd in a suffocating sense of foreboding. This is your fate. Trust me, you don't want to be the last standing. It gets messy." Panic surged anew as whispers spread through the crowd. The guard's desperate cries for order echoed flatly. "Stay calm. We need to regroup." But fear had taken hold, and chaos bubbled once again. That I and the chaos, the popcorn girl's gaze locked onto the CEO. His facade of power crumbled as disbelief morphed into pure panic. This wasn't supposed to happen. He shouted, glancing from her to the cloaked figure, uncertainty twinging his voice. At that moment, she realized the CEO wasn't just a puppet master, he was ensnared as well. The stakes had escalated. It wasn't just her life on the line, it was all of theirs. "Why?" she thundered, driven by curiosity laced with vengeance. "Why do you want this? What does winning mean to you?" The cloaked figure's eyes glimmered maliciously beneath the hood. "Why? To show you what the world truly is. This is about revealing the truth, darling. You think you've been cherished under the CEO's care? You're nothing but a pawn in a much larger game." The truth hit her like a slap, a harsh epiphany that left bruises on her ego. Suddenly, she understood. The laughter, the conspiracies, the veiled treachery, it all converged into one bitter realization. This wasn't just about surviving a night at the theater, it was about confronting shadows that had lingered long before. Then let us redefine the game. She spat, energy surging through her. We're not pawns. We have our own power. The cloaked figure recoiled momentarily, surprise flickering across its hidden face. You think you have power? Prove it. The air thickened with tension. Every heartbeat screamed in her ears. She could feel the weight of the crowd's hope shifting towards her, daring her to ignite the spark. The blade was no longer an object whispering doom, it was a challenge, a weapon of potential empowerment. The lights flickered, revealing flashes of determination in other contestants' eyes. There was mutual understanding now, an agreement to fight, not just for themselves but for one another, but the cloaked figure wouldn't back down. It raised the blade high again, a gesture filled with menace. You want power? Let us see just how far you'll go to claim it. Pulsating dread mingled with newfound hope, and she seized the moment. All at once, she shouted the most powerful words she could summon, words that echoed louder than ever before. I'll show you a fight you never expected. And that was at the moment when the crowd erupted. Hope morphed into action as people rallied together, ready to stand against the shadow that had enveloped them, but before they could launch their counterattack, the cloaked figure faded back into the darkness, leaving them with a terrifying ultimatum ringing in their ears: don't forget, time is not on your side. With eyes wide and hearts racing, the popcorn girl and her newfound allies braced themselves, no longer simply players but active contenders in a game far more sinister than they could have imagined. They weren't just playing for survival anymore. They were fighting for their very souls, and the countdown had begun. What choice would they make when the time ran out? The popcorn girl felt the pulse of adrenaline surging through her veins. The crowd's roar echoed around her, igniting a fierce sense of camaraderie. Each face shone with determination, their eyes wide with hope and fear alike. They were no longer trapped in panic, they were now ready to seize the moment. Form a line. We need to coordinate, shouted one of her friends, an urgent tone lacing his voice. The popcorn girl nodded. Unity gave them strength, but fear still loomed large. The cloaked figure lingered at the edge of the shadows, a menacing presence that made her skin crawl. Listen up. She called out, trying to capture everyone's attention. We need to take back control. We can't let the darkness swallow us whole. Each voice quieted, attention focused on her as if she were a beacon in the night. What do we do? Someone shouted from the crowd. Split into teams, she declared. Some of us distract while others search for a way out. If we work together, we can outsmart them. A ripple of agreement washed through the contestants. They moved swiftly, an electric charge spiraling through the air. Each person took a position, fear surfacing only to be replaced by purpose. Tension thrummed beneath the surface, they were on the brink of launching a counterattack. Suddenly, the stage lights flickered ominously. The cloaked figure stepped forward, the glimmering object still alight. You think you can escape? This stage is your prison. You're merely prolonging the inevitable. The popcorn girl's heart raced, her thoughts racing faster than the staccato rhythm of her pulse. She had to think. We need to divide their attention, she shouted, locking eyes with her closest ally. Now. With that command, chaos erupted. Contestants shouted and clapped, creating an uproar that echoed in the cavernous theater. A flash of movement caught her eye as others took advantage of the pandemonium, darting through the crowd, searching for an escape. What are we looking for? Her ally yelled as they pushed through the throng. Anything that can help us fight back. A weapon. A way to shut down the lights. The crowd's desperate determination enveloped her, igniting a flicker of defiance inside. She moved instinctively, heart thrumming with the urgency of the situation. She spotted a wooden prop at the edge of the stage, sturdy and sharp. Grabbing it quickly, she raised it above her head. Look! Follow me. As they pressed on, fierce energy coursed through them. However, the cloaked figure bellowed with chilling authority, "Enough of this charade." The air froze, and silence nested in the theater. "You think your courage will shield you? Let me remind you, time is running out." A massive clock appeared on the backdrop, the hands moving ominously fast. The countdown had begun. Panic surged anew as they realized the implications. The stakes had escalated beyond mere survival. The figure's sinister intent was now crystal clear. 10 minutes. It shouted, a sinister grin breaking through darkness. In 10 minutes, everything changes. Every heart sank. The clock's ticking echoed ominously, creeping deeper into their minds as shadows encroached. They were no longer fighters, they were desperate. "Move!" The popcorn girl urged fiercely, steel in her voice. "We have less time than we thought." But as the contestants pushed against the weight of despair, the cloaked figure vanished, leaving behind swirling darkness that lay heavy in the air. "Don't you see? This is just the beginning," echoed a distant voice, teasing and echoing, resonating with threat. A sense of dread enveloped every individual, bursting the veil of hope. They were racing against time in a strange theater of terror, and each moment pulled them further into the unknown. The popcorn girl tightened her grip on the wooden prop and stared toward the blackness where the figure had retreated. "We will not give up," she called out, rallying her friends. But just then, the countdown clock flickered, revealing an unexpected message: "Face your demons or perish in the fire." "What does that mean?" someone gasped, eyes wide with fear. Had the cloaked figure set a trap within their own minds? What horrors awaited them in those shadows? With only minutes left, they understood they must confront not only external threats but the demons haunting their pasts. Would they emerge stronger, or would the darkness consume them? And with hardly any time left, the popcorn girl squared her shoulders. Time was slipping away, but she bravely wondered if they could face the truth lurking in each of their hearts, the truth that held the key to their survival. What secrets would they uncover? The popcorn girl could feel the weight of the shimmering darkness wrap around their small group like a dreadful shroud. Time was ticking mercilessly. She took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of courage. Her heart thumped erratically as she peered into the abyss where the figure had vanished. There might be other secrets hidden, other truths waiting for them to reveal themselves. "Look," she shouted, rallying her friends. "We can't wait for the clock to run out. We need to confront whatever darkness the cloaked figure has placed within us. It's the only way. What if it devours us?" Someone cried, their voice trembling with fear. The popcorn girl stepped closer, determination shining in her eyes. "What if being afraid gives them power over us? We know the stakes now. We must turn this fear into strength. We need each of us to share our demons." The crowd shifted uneasily, but something sparked in them, a shared understanding. They were trapped, but they were not powerless. The hunger for freedom replaced their despair. She scanned the faces around her, each reflecting their own fears. One by one, they nodded, the resolve building like a tidal wave. "Then let us begin," her ally shouted, stepping forward. "I'll go first. I've always been scared of failure. I feel like I'm never enough. I fear that I've let everyone down, that I would let you down." As the words left his lips, the air around them crackled. A shadow coiled at the edge of their vision, twisting and writhing as if enraged. The popcorn girl's palms grew clammy. What would happen? Would their fears take on physical forms? But then, something unexpected happened. An almost ethereal light flickered in the midst of the darkness. It was barely there, like a heartbeat pulsing in the suffocating gloom, but it brought warmth and hope. More voices joined in, as they began to share their fears. Each confession ignited sparks of resilience. "I fear being alone," another girl admitted. "I've spent my life hiding in the shadows. I fear never being accepted," a muscular contestant confessed, his voice breaking. Like I'll always be an outsider. With every admission, the shadows seemed to recoil, reluctant to swallow the light emerging from their honesty. Yet, with every truth spoken, the clock ticked down, now showing only 5 minutes. The pressure mounted, and the cloaked figure's haunting laughter echoed through the theater again. How quaint. Do you think your weak words can shield you from the flames? What awaits you are not just your fears but the consequences of facing them. The darkness believes in its own wretched power. This time, the contestants didn't falter. They held each other's hands, uniting in vulnerability. The corners of the stage pulsed, revealing phantom images of their fears in horrifying glory, ghosts of failure, shadows of betrayal, twisted forms of insecurity looming over them, but they held their ground. "We're not afraid of you," the popcorn girl shouted, bold and fearless. "Each truth we share makes us stronger. Together, we disarm you." Just as the last sentiment escaped her lips, a blinding light burst from where they stood, bright and blinding, defiant against the pressing dark. The darkness shrieked, clear and piercing, retreating momentarily as the light spread, but then, from the depths of that darkness, a terrifying figure emerged, a grotesque mimic of their fears, a monstrous reflection of everything they had just confessed. The popcorn girl felt her heart rate spike. This wasn't just a manifestation of their collective dread. It was a force more sinister, with raw power dancing in her chest. She lifted the wooden prop high. "We'll fight it together." As they moved forward, ready to confront the atrocity behind their fears, the clock ticked menacingly, now only 3 minutes remaining. Would they fight through the embodiment of their anguish, or would they fall to its terror? The popcorn girl knew victory lay ahead, but the path was riddled with uncertainty. Was bravery enough? As the monstrous figure loomed closer, they prepared themselves for a fight unlike any other. But now, petrified yet resolute, a chilling thought struck her: what if they couldn't defeat their demons before time ran out? And in that moment of pressing dread, she found herself contemplating the deepest question of all: what does it truly mean to confront the monsters that reside within? The popcorn girl tightened her grip on the prop, an anchor against the chaos swirling around her. The monstrous figure, a grotesque amalgamation of their fears, hissed and writhed, claws poised like daggers ready to shatter the fragile hope they'd built. Its eyes glowed with an unholy hunger, a reflection of everything they dreaded most. With each second that slipped away, her heart thumped like a war drum. 2 minutes left. "Stay together," she yelled, the urgency in her voice cutting through the gathering weight of despair. Every face around her showed raw determination intertwined with fear, and that spark of unity began to ignite something within them. Another contestant took a deep breath. "My fear is of being abandoned," she said, her voice echoing as if reaching out to the shadows. "I've always been afraid I wouldn't matter. That when things got tough, everyone would leave me behind." As if provoked, the monstrous figure shifted, manifesting as a swirling vortex of isolation and despair, jagged hands reaching toward the girl. It was a cruel representation of her fear, and the air grew colder, sending shivers down their spines. But rather than retreat, the group leaned into their shared pain. "I've felt left out my entire life," someone else shouted as they flung their arms wide. "But I'm done hiding. You won't scare me." The light around them glimmered brighter with every shared confession. It was as if their truths were crafting an invisible shield, keeping the dark at bay. The clock continued its relentless countdown, 1 minute and counting, but instead of sinking into despair, they surged forward, voices growing louder. "I fear losing control," a young man cried, his features twisting into a mixture of anger and vulnerability. "I fear not being seen for who I really am." As he spoke, the monstrous figure groaned, its massive form beginning to wobble. The popcorn girl used the momentum. "That's right. Our fears don't own us. They don't define us. What we say matters." The shadows recoiled as voices blended harmoniously into an anthem of resilience. "We refuse to be silenced." The apparition faltered, its momentum slowing, the claws retreating just a point from striking. The glow of the light felt like an unstoppable force, pushing back the abyss. It was hard to believe the darkness was afraid, but in that instant, they saw the truth. Just as the figure reared back with an earth-shattering roar, a devastating clarity struck the popcorn girl. What if facing this monster is the final test? She shouted. What if it needs us to doubt ourselves to thrive? The crowd went silent for a heartbeat, their faces reflecting an unspoken realization. The origin of their fears lay not just in the darkness enveloping them, but in the doubts they often harbored about themselves. The pressure mounted, but hope flickered like a flame in a storm. The final seconds ticked away ominously. 30 seconds. Panic washed over her like a tidal wave. What if they failed? With newfound urgency, she called out, "Together let us reclaim our power." They merged their voices again, a tidal surge of sound against the oncoming tide of darkness. We are more than our fears. The light erupted like a supernova, shattering the lingering darkness as the figure shrieked in retaliation. Words fell like raindrops, each ripple expanding, colliding with the monstrous manifestation before them. The light grew, pulsing and radiating until it threatened to consume the dark entirely. Then, just as they began to feel the tide shift, a single, shattering crack echoed through the theater. In the midst of that blinding brilliance, a chilling whisper emerged from the remnants of the shadows. The true fight is only beginning, and the stage began to tremble. What awaited them now? What else had the cloaked figure lurking in the shadows of their deepest fears? Would the fight only escalate as the light surged on? The ground quaked beneath their feet, sending shockwaves of fear through the group. The popcorn girl felt the vibrations crawl up her legs, a reminder that this was no ordinary battle. The entity had not been defeated, it merely recoiled, preparing for the next phase of this twisted confrontation. What now? Someone murmured, their voice trembling like a fragile leaf caught in a storm. The popcorn girl looked around. Desperation clung to her, but in that moment, she noticed a flicker of something else: resolve. They weren't just fighting the monster, they were battling their own pasts. We have to keep our voices up, she encouraged, forcing strength into her tone. We made it this far, didn't we? Each truth shared chipped away at its power. Suddenly, the walls around them twisted like they were being pulled into another dimension. Fragments of the previous shadows materialized, whispering their fears, their insecurities. Claws formed, reaching out from the dark corners of the stage, trying to grab hold of their hope. The popcorn girl clenched her prop tighter, trying to draw on that remaining light they had created. What if it's using our fears against us? A young man shouted, sweat beading on his brow, his eyes darting. Exactly. She swallowed, trying to master her own bubbling panic. That's how these things work. We must face them head on. But just as the group steeled themselves for another round, a shadow lumbered to the forefront, morphing rapidly into the figure of a hooded man. The aura pulsated with malice, his voice a deep, gravelly echo that chilled their bones. You think you've won? Each confession merely entertains me. I thrive on your pain. Gasps scattered through the contestants. What does he mean? Someone whispered, their fear palpable. The figure's focus turned to the popcorn girl. You, especially the popcorn girl. You want to save your friends so desperately, don't you? But can you save yourself? You've always been the one hiding in the background, remembering the laughter, but forgetting to laugh yourself. Her heart raced, the words slicing through her like icy knives. Memories flooded her mind, lonely afternoons when her voice was scarcely heard and moments of laughter that turned hollow in her chest. It was true. She had felt invisible at times. Could it be that her inner doubts were fossilizing her under the cloak of fear? Stop! She shouted, her voice steadier than she felt. You won't control me. We're done being defined by our fears. The room surged with a pulse of energy, and others echoed her sentiment. The shadows wavered, flickering like a dying flame. Still, the hooded figure loomed, a wicked grin unveiling teeth like sharpened steel. Very well, let us see how strong your spirit truly is. With a swift motion, he swept his hand across the stage, drawing a rift that opened into a blinding light. Within the radiance, silhouettes spun and twisted, each a reflection of the group's hidden anxieties. Shadows of betrayal, loss, and hopelessness emerged, circling ominously around them. What do we do? Another contestant cried, his eyes wide with terror as shadows began to encroach, filling the air with dread. The popcorn girl felt sweat trickling down her back. We fight. She threw her arms wide, summoning the strength within her. Together. Every one of us, we're not alone. The words echoed, resonating through the energy that pulsed around them. One by one, they stepped forward, reclaiming their narratives, reclaiming their voices against the chaos. Together. They cried, forming a protective unit, but as they gathered, a voice from within the light whispered, rich with deceit. You think unity can shield you from the darkness? The real test hasn't even begun, and as the shadows lunged, the popcorn girl knew one thing: every fear they fought, and every truth they embraced would lead them to a new, unforeseen battleground. What would it mean to truly face their deepest terrors? Would they fall apart, or rise together stronger than ever? The shadows lunged, a horde of twisting dark arms reaching for the group, hungry for the hope they dared to cling to. The popcorn girl felt fear tighten around her throat, constricting her breath. Yet, her heart pounded in rhythm with the rallying cries of her friends. Together, they were stronger. And that thought ignited a spark within her, pushing back against the dark. Stay close. She shouted, her voice echoing through the eerie silence that followed the initial chaos. The group huddled tighter, an assemblage of trembling yet defiant souls. The hooded figure leaned closer, a sinister grin creeping across his face. Do you really think your nostalgia gives you strength? Those fond memories are crumbling, just like your courage. His laughter ricocheted off the walls, chilling them to their core, but the popcorn girl wasn't backing down. We carry our memories to remind us who we are. You can't take that away. With each word, she felt a surge of energy coursing through her, rekindling the flicker of hope in each participant surrounding her. They were no longer just shadows skipping between fear and despair. They were vibrant, living people, bruised and wounded, but resilient. Together. They replied, their voices harmonizing, breaking through the cacophony of darkness. The shadows hesitated, recoiling as though wounded. For a fleeting moment, the popcorn girl's heart soared. But the moment shattered as the hooded figure wielded a dark energy, unleashing it into the group like a violent storm. Foolish children, he hissed. Your unity is nothing but a fantasy. Witness the strength of your fears. Tendrils of darkness cascaded down, enveloping them in a swirling tempest. The shadows morphed, taking on grotesque forms, each character reflecting their deepest fears. The young man standing to the popcorn girl's left morphed into an older version of himself, riddled with regret. His face was aged, creased with sorrow, and in his eyes, she saw the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Look! He gasped, voice trembling. That's what I become if I fail. Do not look away. The popcorn girl commanded, struggling against the oppressive force. This isn't real. Then, a vision of herself emerged next, trapped in a bubble of isolation. Her past self, curled up in a corner, seemingly forgotten, a whisper in a cacophony, drowning in the laughter of others. It felt like a mirror reflecting everything she had always feared: utter insignificance. No! She yelled at the apparition, tears stinging her eyes. I refuse to let you define me. Taking one brave step forward, she ripped the shadows off her reflection. I am more than my pain. I have laughter, love, and friends. I refuse to be prisoner to you. As if powered by her conviction, the darkness around her began to writhe. Others followed suit. One by one, voices rose in defiance, stripping the shadows of their power. Their fears weren't their masters, they were just echoes of insecurities that had always haunted them, the hooded figure screamed, his image flickering as the shadows faltered under the onslaught of their unity. But just as victory seemed attainable, the light formed around them began to shift. It grew chaotic, swirling violently, throwing the popcorn girl off balance. "What's happening?" she gasped, the realization crashing down hard. A tight knot of dread reformed in her chest as the shadows lurched and transformed once more, coalescing into a monstrous entity, unhindered by their earlier resistance. It was larger, more menacing, infused with every fear they had now fought against, simmering rage visibly radiating off it. "No, this can't be," someone whispered, horror etching their features. "Stay united," the popcorn girl cried desperately. "We can't let it tear us apart." As dread surged again, they braced themselves for the inevitable confrontation. But deep down, she wondered, could they truly face this new dreadful creature, or were they simply playing into the very cycle they sought to break? In that moment, the ground trembled again, resonating with an unholy force. The popcorn girl felt a fierce determination rise within her. They could face this, but what awaited beyond would change all of them forever. What if this time, the darkness's grip wasn't just a reflection, but an unmasking of who they really were? With time slipping away and fear clawing at their insides, the popcorn girl's heart thundered against her rib cage. The monstrous entity before them loomed large, an amalgamation of every fraught confession, every whisper of doubt and insecurity echoed back at them. Shadows twisted and writhed in the flickering light, their presence suffocating. She could feel panic rippling through the group, threatening to pull them under. But deep within, a fire sparked, igniting her resolve. "Remember what we learned," she shouted, her voice rising against the torrent of darkness. "We are not defined by our fears. We can confront it together." Her words rallied the crowd, the flicker of unity igniting a blaze of courage among them. Every face reflected shared determination, every individual summoning the strength of their collective power. They formed a tight circle, hands gripped together, refusing to let the shadows tear them apart. The entity surged forward, tendrils reaching hungrily, but they stood firm, a fortress against torment. "Face it with your truth. Declare your light," she urged, her voice steady and true, slicing through the chaos like a knife. They wouldn't fall apart, they were woven together by their shared struggles. One by one, contestants stepped forward, sending tremors through the dark veil. "I fear never being seen," shouted a girl, her voice cracking but strong. "But here I am." A wave of courage washed over her, expelling shadows inching closer. "I fear letting my family down," cried another. "But I choose to rise with them." Each spoken truth erupted with vibrancy, unleashing waves of light that flickered defiantly against the darkness. The shadows began to recoil, bending as the energy surged forth, the air heavy with determination. "I fear rejection," a young man shouted, stepping out boldly. "But love and friendship are stronger than fear." With every exclamation, the combined voices shattered the choking shadows, each confession emitting radiant light that illuminated the dark corners of the auditorium. Then came a collective shout, "We choose to be more than our fears. We embrace our light." The shadows let out a horrific wail, reeling from the vibrant flood of unity breaking the suffocating grip they held for so long. The popcorn girl felt an overwhelming rush, her own inner doubts dissipating in the swell of defiance and strength. She stepped closer, channeling that energy. "You are not who you believe yourself to be." Suddenly, the monstrous figure faltered, halting mid-lunge, swirls of darkness crashing against the power of their collective light. Faces that had once reflected fear now beamed with resolve, strength, and acceptance. This was their moment, as the final seconds of the countdown ticked away, a blinding light emitted from their circle, an eruption of raw power that sent tremors through the air. The monstrous entity, once fearsome, writhed and shrieked, twisting in the brilliance, struggling against the onslaught of their courage. Then, with a resounding crash, darkness shattered like glass, remnants evaporating into stardust, scattering across the auditorium as sunlight flooded in. The energy released was intoxicating, rejoicing in the triumph against the abyss. They had won, not simply against a tangible monster, but against the labyrinth of their fears. In that blazing light, they realized the cloaked figure's hold had been broken. The contest was no longer a trap but an unveiling. Deep within each heart, the popcorn girl knew they had emerged transformed. Cheers erupted, voices lifting as one, drenched in an elation that coursed through them, infectious and jubilant. And as she looked around at the faces that had once been plagued by trepidation and uncertainty, she saw something beautiful, a deep, abiding connection, a bond that easily transcended the grim atmosphere they had emerged from. She tilted her head back and laughed, feeling the constraints of fear slip away like an old coat. They had conquered the shadows together, and in that victory, they had rewritten the rules of the game they found themselves trapped in. The audience's cheers rang like music in her heart, a melody forever etched into her spirit. "I dare anyone to challenge us now," she proclaimed, raising her arms in defiance. They were champions of their own stories, ready to take on whatever came next, knowing they now had the strength to face it together. As the crowd began to disperse, the reality of their shared journey washed over her, each step forward not just about popcorn but about finally claiming their identities amid a strange and unpredictable world. The popcorn girl smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude, braced for whatever adventures lay ahead, and as she departed the stage, one thought anchored her feet to the ground: she would never again hide in the shadows. The popcorn girl had found her voice, embraced her truth, and stepped into the light, ready to savor every moment life had in store for her. Now, here's a burning question for you: do you want to keep riding along on this adventure with us? You need to subscribe now to make sure you don't miss the next chapter. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help spread this incredible journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what lies ahead for our popcorn girl, and wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel the magic of this story. Your support makes all the difference. Together, we can grow.